Why am I in there? Holy crap.
We're close to that. Is it recording now?
It's recording.
Well, I think so.
All right.
We're close to start time.
Yeah.
Recording podcast.
And so who is allowing people to join?
Automatically.
Auto join, correct? So that's what I'm saying. Once it's open, anybody can join at any time.
Yeah.
Okay.
1 minute. 60-second countdown. Everybody. You just hang on with this thing.
Are you really?
It's hot. Maybe I should take off this jacket. But
It looks,
oh no, it's
yeah,
professional.
Yeah, I'm the one who looks like a street slob.
No, you don't.
You're gonna
No, you
start,
don't.
Andrew?
Yes.
You look like you're from
Go ahead.
Boise.
That's right.
Yeah.
2 o'clock. Broadcast. Welcome everyone to our Quinton webinar. We are here as a water and wellness, we're at a company-wide event here. And what I wanted to do first, because we want to jump real quick, we've got a lot of information to cover. I'm Dr. Angela, of course, our water expert, Robert, but the newest addition to our team is Mike Long, and he comes to us with 35 years experience in the water industry as well. And he's also responsible for really selling Quinton to millions of people throughout Asia. So we've got Robert who brought Quinton to America, and then Mike, and between the two of them, they're responsible for millions of people knowing about Quinton. And as a company, we are really shifting our focus, and with the holidays coming and with the immune assault that we're under, we really want to focus our efforts on making sure each and every one of you understand the importance of Quinton. And we want to make sure as well that you get some questions answered. So make sure that you do send in your questions through the chat area. That's what we're going to be looking at. And also for everyone that's going to get on, we're going to have a special offer. And we're going to give you $11 off a bundle of both isotonic and hypertonic, because it's really important to use both of them. But that's going to be, we'll share that link in the chat section. And the code for that is balance21, because the focus is restoring balance and homeostasis to the body, especially during the holidays when everybody's eating poor and drinking. And so we're going to have fun today. This is our first time being together in one space. And I'm going to let Robert take it away with the background of Quinton.
Hi, everybody. One of my favorite things is to discuss my favorite, I'd say my favorite health science, which is Quinton marine plasma, a product that has been around since 1897. I wonder how few people really know that. And I'm going to share my screen and start. I think we're almost there. There's going to be some awkward. You should be seeing a spherical or a circular earth, and it says essential marine plasma, the foundation. The foundation is an excellent word. I know of no more foundational a nutrient in addition to one's health and physiology than Quinton in the world. In fact, there really, if you understand it, you realize there really can't be anything more foundational, and we'll explain scientifically why. And there's some significance to this, because on this opening slide, there is attention given to what is something that's in the ocean, and it's a plankton bloom, a place where phyto and zooplankton coexist in a very special area under very special conditions. And it is from this area that Quinton is harvested. And there is a picture at the top, just under essential marine plasma, of a phytoplankton. And then there's a zooplankton. It happens to be something called a copepod. And that is part of the whole, let's say, creation of the significance and biochemistry of Quinton. And then we have a picture of René Quinton himself, the revolutionary biologist and scientist of the late 1800s, and that he is known for producing these magical glass ampules of water that is derived from the plankton bloom. So that's where we're beginning this, and going to transfer to the next slide. And we're going to do something a little, just a little fun. And just to get everybody in the mood, and that seawater was really recognized even before the time of Christ. Euripides, one of the great philosophers of all history, happened to have, been intelligent and observational enough to see that the sea cures all man's ills. Well, it's really true in many ways, and he made it known. It's one of the most commonly quoted things about the ocean. And then we have something just to show you about René Quinton. He lived from 1866 to 1925, and he was, the man for all seasons. He was a scientist and a way to a French war hero. In fact, he actually died of war wounds. And he was, interestingly, one of the founders of aviation as well. And he was a colleague of Darwin, who, of course, had a lot to do with the evolution of the species. And that was a very important input for René Quinton. And René Quinton also was a colleague of the man who is considered the father of modern physiology, Claude Bernard. And then after Claude Bernard, we had the man who really understood and started to teach us about the bioterrain, and that's Antoine Béchamp. And some of you may recognize the name because he went head to head with Louis Pasteur in the very nature of disease and chronic illness. And that is some people call it the germ theory, and it was a very highly contested period in which the principles of the modern pharmaceutical industry, which were really being promoted by Louis Pasteur, won out. And that is the system we live in now. So these are this wonderful picture, this painting is of some of those top Claude Bernard and his fellow doctors, and it's very warming and very rich painting. So now we're going to talk a little bit about science. About 13.8 billion years ago, it is proposed and agreed upon by most scientists that out of nothingness, possibly consciousness, possibly other things we do not understand and we probably don't, the universe was created. We went from emptiness, nothingness, to a universe of massive size and construction that included all the subatomic particles, atoms, and very special things called the elements of the periodic table. Now, I want you to take the elements of the periodic table very seriously, because they are the foundation of everything, not only that exists in reality, but they are the foundation of everything about you that involves health and wellness and healing as well. So we want you to realize that it was this moment in which we created 92 different elements that make up everything in the universe. So every variety of the elements that make up the universe happens to be in Quinton. It's one of the things that make it so rare and so special. And in fact, if you have enough Quinton, you really could, theoretically, anything in the universe, because the universe is only made of those 92 elements.
So Robert, while you're mentioning that, what is different about taking Quinton versus other trace mineral supplements that have 72 minerals? We get that question a lot.
Well, I think it's best that we wait for a couple more slides, and it will become very apparent how this.
Continue on.
Yeah. So out of that, about 5 billion years ago, the Big Bang, or that thing that created the universe, was 13.8 billion years ago. About 5 billion years ago, the Earth started to form, and the solar system, and this is the planet, the Earth that we live on, and so it's just kind of good frame of reference that it was 5 billion years ago. But the Earth was composed of molten rock and asteroids and comets and space dust and so on that was being compressed by their own natural gravity and forming an object in the solar system. But it was composed of just these 92 elements. So how did we get water on that? This is the defining moment. Water was brought to the Earth. It is, most scientists agree, by comets, and comets have a large amount of ice that composes them. Some scientists say up to 2/3, and those comets bombarded Earth in an event called the Late Heavy Bombardment, and it delivered what we know as the oceans of the Earth to the Earth itself. And that's why we can say we have a blue planet, because it was at one point completely covered with water. But what happened? And this is the defining moment. Whoops. What happened? Well, that water dissolved those elements, those 92 elements of the periodic table, which composed the Earth and every other planet and every other thing in the universe. But on Earth, it dissolved to their individual solubilities. This is part of the magic. Not everyone will grasp this, but every element has a unique solubility in water. And so each one really became part of this magnificent 92 component solution that we call the primordial ocean. And we call it the primordial ocean because it was the ocean we attribute to allowing the emergence of life on Earth. So kind of just consider that nature created this primordial ocean, and the ocean was composed of seawater, which contained the 92 elements. And there were organic molecules that were generated from organic vents in the ocean. And 3.8 billion years ago, this situation, this primordial ocean, this unique solution of water and the 92 elements, this is what magically allowed something to exist that, as far as we know, may be the only life in the universe. It certainly probably was the first, and we call them microorganisms, but they formed about 3.8 billion years ago in this primordial ocean. And here, if you have any takeaway, here is an illustration of evolution. So on the left-hand side, we're going to go through this very quickly. On the left-hand side is the formation of Earth itself. The very first, that's when Earth started to form. And on the right-hand side, at the other end of the trapezoid, if you will, that is where we are living now. But you see that there is this blue rectangle that occupies most of this illustration. Now, on the left side of that blue rectangle, you can see that that's where water covers the earth, and soon after cellular life begins. Right there on the left side of the blue rectangle. Now, on the right side of the blue rectangle is the other end of evolution in the sea. So all species, from a snail to a snake to a virus to a bacteria to Homo sapien, you name it, it's there. All of it started and ended its evolution. Well, not ended, because we're all still evolving now. Started its evolution in the ocean, and it continued on 2.5 billion years in the ocean. It didn't evolve anywhere else but in the ocean, because the ocean was such a good keeper of biology and life. And it made it easy. The ocean made it easy for life to procreate and grow and develop all its variety. And so this is what gave Rene Quinton the understanding that there is something so intimate between life and the ocean that he wouldn't let it go, and he developed an entire science, an entire medicine, an entire healing system, etc., based upon ocean water. And today we are the benefactors of it. Now, at the right-hand side of that blue rectangle, that is the first time that some life left the ocean for a terrestrial existence, because the nature of life is to continue to change, explore, etc., its environment. So all 5 kingdoms, from bacteria to phytoplankton to produce to mushrooms, fungi, animals, etc., all originated in the ocean and evolved in the ocean. So we can say, we're not going to go through this, these are 12 things that prove to us that seawater was the architect, meaning it was the group, it was the force behind the development of all life species. I mean, it's a remarkable realization that Rene Quinton had. And so when it left the earth, when we left the ocean, it became that ocean. Rene Quinton said the only way life could leave the ocean was to take the ocean with it. And what did he mean by that, take the ocean with it? Well, we and all other life, the water, as you know, water is the major component in all life species. But what did that water become? That water became the driving force of life that had left the ocean, because it couldn't be separated from it. So we call that, some scientists call this, our extracellular fluid, meaning the fluid in which all the individual cells are floating and existing and deriving their subsistence exactly like life did during evolution in the ocean. So we don't have to go through this, but we ourselves, as the human species, we consist of about 2/3 water, and that water all has a specific composition that's nearly identical to seawater. It's a remarkable realization to have. So throughout science, these are all the great physiologists, et cetera, who had different names and different understanding of what, like Claude Bernard, the father of physiology, he called it the milieu interior. Others called Kissinger, probably the greatest living physiologist of our time, he called it the ground regulation system. So some people call this also not only the extracellular fluid, they call it the extracellular matrix. And coming on strong is a word called the biological terrain. Quinton is your biological terrain. It is your extracellular matrix. It has an identity with that fluid. And if you tamper with your extracellular matrix, its composition, its nature, and its function, you depart from homeostasis. You depart from a healthy lifestyle. And that's why Quinton is so essential in maintaining the homeostasis. So basically, if you only remember this, 60 to 70% of us are functional fluids evolved from seawater. These are some of the great scientists involved in it. And I don't have to cover this. Here's the famous statement by René Quinton: the only way cellular life could leave the ocean is to take the ocean with it. And we now have we're not going to go through these, all of the comments of the great physiologists and biologists telling us the same story I just told. So I'm going to turn this over to Angela, Dr. Angela.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody's sending over questions in the chat area, but we've already had a very common question, which is, why do I need to take both? Which one should I be taking? So we suggest.
Okay, we suggest let's both. Well, probably not everybody involved knows there's both, okay? So let's cover that. There are two forms of Quinton seawater. One we typically refer to as isotonic, one we refer to as hypertonic, and we're going to show those to you. So am I showing this to that camera?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not camera. Okay.
Yeah, right here.
So these are the two forms of Quinton. This is called hypertonic. Let's go through the nuts and bolts here. This is called hypertonic. And of course, there's 10 milliliters encased in this sterile apyrogenic glass vial. And this is called hypertonic. This is called isotonic, the one in the clear glass. This is not the color. The amber is the color of the glass. This is as it is taken from the plankton bloom, harvested after harvesting, after quality control for 1 month, and after packaging and processing and packaging.
Robert, can we talk about that as well so everybody knows? There are other sea plasma companies out there, but there's nothing like Quinton. Because talk about the harvesting, the 4 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I mean the
quality
just
control.
the harvesting is done in a very, very special location where there is an upwelling of intense mineral concentration that sustains the phytoplankton and zooplankton. And then this is treated, this water is treated like gold. It is never heated, and therefore it is even transported at 4 degrees centigrade. It goes into a refrigerated facility at 4 degrees centigrade, and it is examined for 1 month before it is allowed to be considered for processing. And the processing does involve the removal of any types of or other organisms or
Any bacteria.
sediments or particulates, etc., so that it is a pure solution that is both sterile and apyrogenic. Then that it is packaged in and never heated, never exposed to any other energetic treatments like ultraviolet or biochemical treatments like ozone. It is purely done to retain all of its living properties. So that is the hypertonic. Now, why does isotonic exist? Isotonic is a dilution of hypertonic, and it's about 3-to-1 dilution. Now, hypertonic is the concentration of the periodic table in the current ocean. And the ocean has really never changed significantly in composition. So it's remained the same for all time. The isotonic is done because it matches the concentration of our body fluids. So this is the first product that has this intimate compatibility with our body and the ability to transform and balance it to its evolutionary inheritance.
So Robert,
Go ahead.
between 1908 and 1925, Rene Quinton had different sea plasma dispensaries, clinics throughout
69
Europe,
of them.
69. So were they using this isotonic?
In general, I would say 90%, because remember, in that period of time, there were multiple pandemics, okay? And that's what aroused the use of Quinton. So there was cholera, the big cholera, in all of Europe and Northern Africa. There was typhoid, syphilis, gastroenteritis, influenza, and massive birth defects. And so he had a job to do, or right from the beginning. And it was John Jericho, who was the great physiologist of the day, who said, hey, we have these pandemics. What are we going to do about it? And you know, I've seen you do transfusion of blood of dogs in Paris. You've done all this stuff. Let's see what this does. And so they addressed using the 69 marine dispensaries. And now, because they were they weren't trying to like balance their health. They were trying to live. They were trying to cure a disease, etc. So they did use the most identical fluid to your natural extracellular fluid, and that ends up being isotonic.
And that is why we suggest everyone start
And
to.
that is why we really suggest, and we're going on this, we want people to truly benefit from the promise of Quinton. And the best way to do this is to start with Quinton isotonic, depending upon the state of your health. And we suggest, I mean, if you're a really healthy person, we suggest 1 month of this product to up to 3 months. So excuse our little fire alarm or whatever's going off. So isotonic is a good way to embark upon a Quinton protocol and program.
It's important to restore balance in acute scenarios. That's what we suggest. It's also great for shifting someone from a sympathetic dominant state to a parasympathetic state. So that state of rest and digest, to optimize digestion, or if someone has a difficult time falling asleep or winding down at the end of the day, great way. And now another thing we really want to work on is that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you should be doing is grabbing that ampule of Quinton. Whether it's isotonic or hypertonic, you're waking up in this dehydrated, deficient state. The best time for your body to grab those nutrients and bring it back, bring it in, is the morning, right when you wake up.
Correct. And
Can I jump in real quick?
please.
Because I think that for most of our audience, it's important to understand that this product, this essence of you, because you were Quinton, that's what you're made of. It existed before there were antibiotics. Today, if you've got cholera or typhoid or any of the other things, you would say, okay, go to the physician, take your antibiotics, follow what they recommend. That didn't exist before then. So it was, how do we save millions of lives, not worrying about balancing the terrain, let's save the life. And this is where this remarkable product really came from.
And Mike's probably seen more dramatic testimonials that have come in through your work abroad.
Yeah.
So
Now, I want to say something that's I wasn't expecting to say. One of the reasons that there is such an absence of information, especially in North America, about Quinton, since I brought it here, which is about 15 years ago, okay? One of the reasons there's such an absence of information is because of what this is capable of. And we live in such hostile times in which censorships of all forms of healing that don't correspond to the traditional pharmaceutical model are forbidden, and you can go to jail and you can have your business destroyed. So we do our best to communicate the capability of this product without stepping on the toes of those we shouldn't do.
correct.
Good point.
Yeah.
So would we like to talk about the different forms and opening
Why
this?
don't you show some people, there may be some new people that don't know how to open the ampule.
Surely. So
And it, you know, just so people know, there is a sachet. A lot of people love those for travel. I certainly do. But let's also show, can you see that from the side as well? Show this camera here, Robert, over here. Yeah. But, you know, a lot of people do ask, how do I properly open the ampule and safely administer it?
So the ampule is the superior package. It is the most long-lasting
superior
therapeutic.
in terms of shelf
Its
life and
ability to protect the delicate thousands of little biochemical components to this product, okay? So, you know, nothing beats the glass, et cetera, et cetera. But if you are just trying to use this for minerals and trace elements, for its 78 minerals and trace elements, among other factors that are in seawater, then the sachet will do. But if you're trying to address the most complex of, let's say, physiological conditions or situations, the ampule in the glass ampule is the superior. So, you know, everybody has a different way of doing it. And I'm going to hand one to Dr. Angela. And I'm going to hand
also
one to Michael.
let's also answer Kathy's question. So when would I be using hypertonic?
When you do not have a noticeable health condition, okay, that you are acting on with some form of strategy, health strategy or protocol, you can go right to the hypertonic.
And Gina's also asking this, how
And
long?
also there's nothing wrong with using hypertonic for just sheer mineralization of a variety of things in your life, like the mineralization of water. In fact, I'm going to hand Michael a bottle, a half liter of water. And
Your camera is the only one working.
So yeah,
really?
yeah, for some reason.
So
Sorry, guys.
yeah.
Also, Gina, to answer, usually with isotonic, we say for about a month, and then you can add in hypertonic. For people who are more in an imbalanced or deficient state, chronic health ailments, it's really good to take that longer, maybe 2 or 3 months. But there are some people who stay on isotonic, so it's really a case-by-case basis, I would say. But hypertonic is great when you are adding,
Active.
when you're very active with your workouts, with people who work outdoors and sweat profusely.
Exactly.
Also adding to your RO water because you've removed everything with your reverse osmosis. We
Well,
want to
not
add
just RO water, but distilled water,
or
almost
RO.
any water. I mean, if you buy the best of bottled water, they are not well mineralized. They have a very small variety of minerals and trace elements. I mean, Quinton has 78, and I would say the typical, even premium of premium bottled waters perhaps has 10.
Right.
That's a big difference.
But it's also the ratio,
And
how they work together.
yes, and the proportions of minerals and trace elements, meaning what's the relationship between calcium and phosphorus and zinc, etc. And if we have time, we'll show a mineral wheel that exhibits this relationship between things, and only seawater satisfies this relationship.
Now let's be careful about this because we have a question. So the ampule is better than the sachet. When you're looking at isotonic, because this is going to be the powerful one that you start off with to restore the biotrain, the health of the biotrain, and it acts so quickly. This you take on an empty stomach, hold it in your mouth for 30 seconds before swallowing. That's the best way to take this. So 30 minutes before a meal or 2 hours after eating. And when we say it's better, superior than the sachet, it is because the glass is the best way to preserve not only the energetics, but the product itself. So this has a longer shelf life. It isn't that the sachet is bad, because it is wonderful for someone to use a sachet. If you are afraid of glass or for whatever reason you're traveling, we take the sachets on the road. So it's not that it is better than, it's better shelf life.
Okay, I am going to put an ampule of hypertonic into a bottle of purified water, and it's virtually nothing but H2O. And we all know that we need minerals. I mean, minerals constitute 4% of our entire body. And as Robert mentioned earlier, really all we are is a bag full of water, and the bones keep the bag upright. That's the way that I like to think of it, because that's the reality of it. So as Robert said, there are different ways to open an ampule. Some people like to use a little, round, I think it's made out of nylon, so that they're not touching the ampule itself. I'm so used to it.
And it protects your fingers.
You get used to it.
So use it.
Okay, I'll
let's
use this. Okay, you can see I'm going to put this over the tip.
And snap it.
I'm going to
Very easily.
break the tip. I'll set the tip down. And one thing I would like to point out, make sure that you set the tip down in a place that you can easily find it again. Otherwise, it's going to roll off the counter or wherever and get into the floor or the carpet, and then pretty soon you're going to step on it. Yep. So then I invert, and you watch as I invert, nothing coming out. Nope, it's there. But when I open the other tip, watch the stream.
Easy as that.
And that's it.
So Michael has just put in 330 milligrams of the periodic table containing 78 minerals and trace elements into this bottled water. Now, this very inexpensive bottled water has turned into something more valuable, more effective than the most expensive bottled water you could buy from any country.
And to expand on that, you can't buy that. Right. You have to create it yourself. either by using your own water purifier or filtration unit, or buying that inexpensive bottled water, you create the solution that you're made of. So it's a product that you cannot overstate the importance, the value, just the unbelievable history and everything that goes into it. We could talk here for a week and not even begin to cover 1%.
Michelle, your question regarding Quinton for Lyme, you can reach out to us directly because we have more resources. So Angela at Water and Wellness is my personal email. You can reach out to me, but it should be the foundation for anyone who has that type of chronic concern. The terrain is everything, and we need that. So it's very important, but reach out to me, Angela at waterandwellness.com, and I'll get you more information.
Yes, and again, the only publication we make readily available digitally is this publication, and it's just an overview of the history, the science, and the application of Quinton. Very enjoyable, very well done. It helps you understand the product. So we're happy to, if you request it, we're happy to send this to you in a digital format.
Can I jump in real quick before we take another question? One of the things as we in Asia were promoting the health benefits that was easy for people to understand, and I would use this analogy. When you're teaching your youngster how to ride a bike, they fall down, and they fall down because they lose their balance. An ice skater, when they're doing, you know, an extreme routine or trick, if they fall, it's because they've lost their balance. And I think that it's appropriate that we often say people fall sick because they've lost their balance. And Quinton is so critical to regaining the balance and then maintaining the balance so that we don't fall sick. And this is something that I've seen firsthand in thousands of different people over the years. And this is why I am so excited to be able to be part of this knowledgeable group of people to share this incredibly important product with people.
We have a renewed passion for Quinton with Mike joining our team.
Yes.
We're really excited because I know last year we had some points where we sold out and everybody was really patient. I mean, it was just flying off the shelves, and we have remedied that. And we are absolutely excited for this next year because we plan to do more education for you. And that's why, you know, we see a lot of familiar names who are on this webinar, and we have the best community, the Water and Wellness community. It's almost like a family. And I see Annette has asked, how do you use this with deuterium depleted water? If you're someone who's taking light water or chloridria, same thing.
Use
Just
it as the
add it to the
mineralization.
water.
And
Add
you
it to
can
the
do
water.
one ampule of hypertonic. Don't use isotonic to remineralize because it's already diluted and you're wasting
Right.
money.
It's hypertonic.
So only use hypertonic to do that. But there's a point we have to make to everybody. Look, we all know that chronic disease, we're in a crisis of chronic disease in the world, everything. So what was that connected with? Well, the real reason was the loss of minerals and trace elements in our diets, okay? Nature had intended that when you left the ocean and you had this assembly of minerals and trace elements in your biological terrain, et cetera, that you would slowly be able to replenish this, okay? Because not everybody was living near the sea or even knew the technology, but you would get this from the minerals that had once dissolved in the sea, from the soil of that your produce was growing in. But you know what happened? It's almost a joke that our food has become so demineralized, and there are many people crying out. It's the demineralization of food that has left us with totally damaged, imbalanced bioterrains and extracellular matrix. And this is the only way to easily do it. Okay, I mean, if you buy all your food at Whole Foods and Sprouts, it's still not going to work. It's maybe produce, we're going to generalize, maybe produce contains at best 25 or 30 minerals and trace elements, not 78. So this is the greatest of all, most foundational supplements for restoring this critical foundational aspect of human physiology.
Robert, Olga says, are there any toxins at all in there? Has it been tested for lead?
Okay, so, you know, I can spend an entire, because I've done this for 15 years, I know every single thing about Quinton, and many people do ask, hey, it's coming from the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. I've written a number of papers, mostly for doctors, because it gets technical. People ask about, you know, toxins from petroleum in the water. People ask about plastic microparticles, etc. But this Quinton, not only its source, which comes from a zone of biocenosis within a plankton bloom. Now, what makes the zone so special? Well, it is self-purifying. It is a colony of living organisms that clean up their own space.
Right,
So
and
that's
that's why
the
there's
first thing.
more fish in that area, because it's pure and there's a lot of minerals in
Right.
those vortexes.
And so this goes through 1 month of quality assurance and inspection before it can be even considered. If it doesn't make it that month, it goes down the drain, some drain,
Right.
and they get more water. I have seen all the reports. I'm a water expert. I've seen the analysis, etc. It has less and lower levels of contaminants than the most stringent USP guidelines for supplements that one
Right.
ingests. It's incredible. So
And I think
no problem.
It's important to, you know, make that distinction because of the other sea plasma products on the market that are not harvesting in these pristine environments of the vortex plankton bloom, and also they are not making sure that it's only exposed to glass and ceramic throughout the entire process and those cold temperatures. So there are a lot of, well, different companies are popping up left and right, trying to get the benefits of the minerals, but not.
Yeah, I mean, minerals and trace elements are not a good product line. There are too many poorly assembled, imbalanced greatly. When you see a concentrate, you never want a concentrate of minerals and trace elements, because you've already imbalanced the proportions of those trace elements and minerals,
Right.
and you've lost it before you even take the first drop of it.
Right. And if there's any heat that's applied, you're going to create
A whole
radicals.
nother, you're going to
Free
destroy
radicals, which is
all the micronutrients and the chemistry that exists between the minerals and trace elements.
Mhm. Right.
Let me see if
Let's
I
look
can.
at more questions. Linda, hydrogen will be another talk. We have a question about liter bottles. If you have a family that you're supplying who's all drinking, if you have the ability to get a liter bottle of hypertonic, okay. Usually it's just our practitioners that use the liter bottles of isotonic.
Right, but they are available.
Do store those in the refrigerator, but these do not need to be stored in the refrigerator.
Right. So I'm showing, I think you can see, I hope you can see a mineral wheel, okay, on our screen. And the mineral wheel describes, it's of course incomplete because you can't fit them all on here. You can't fit all 78 on here. So the mineral wheel describes the relationship between all of the elements of the periodic table that exist in seawater. And this relationship, each one influences the other's chemistry. So this is what Quinton brings to the table that nothing else can bring.
Shelby asks, what does holding the water in the mouth for 30 seconds do?
Strictly because there is such absorption in the mouth, okay?
Mhm.
I mean, it's just a procedural thing that helps you better absorb from one of the most absorbable parts of your body, the oral cavity,
Mhm.
to bring the elements into that part of the body.
Okay, another question from Olga. Fulvic and humic acid versus Quinton.
No, the humic and fulvic acid is a complex discussion, but there is no comparison for this reason. First, most people do not understand the difference between pure humic and fulvic acid and humic and fulvic acid mineral formulas. Okay, so they're two distinct things, and the public has been left really very uninformed about them. Let's assume we're talking about the more popularly marketed humic and fulvic acid minerals. Okay, every scoop of humic and fulvic acid vegetation, and I'm not saying it doesn't have nutritive value and it can't be an additive part of your health, but everyone is different.
Yeah.
The proportions change on a monthly basis. You really will see almost no data on what's in humic and fulvic acid mineral formulas because it changes. So when you harvest this, like, you get a truck and you dig it out of the ground and you get this slurry of vegetation, you put this in a processor and you start to decide how much you're going to dilute this to give to the public. And this is just one of the secrets of the humic and fulvic acid industry, okay? It's very hard to discern what you're getting, and it's going to be different all the time. And some may contain 70 plus, some may not. It depends on if it's from Arizona or Utah or Alabama. So there's so much variation in it that we really prefer the constancy of the oceanic source, which we know always offers the 78 in the perfect proportions that supported human and the evolution of all life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Victoria asks, how is the vortex area of the ocean affected by pollution, plastic, microfibers? We did mention that.
Okay, so we have a report on, for those of you who have these questions that can, take up some time but are very worth answering. We have a special paper on microplastics, okay? So microplastics that are in the ocean have gotten an amazing amount of press when the proof of the pudding is the fact that they're not very interactive with the body, but that's one thing. But
hey, brother,
what?
I've got a question about pets.
Wait, let me finish.
Okay, finish.
So microplastics, to date, Laboratoires Quinton has its own quality assurance laboratory.
Mhm.
They use a third-party quality assurance laboratory.
Yep.
They send us reports, and to date, no microplastics have ever been seen under microscopic examination, which you have to do for microplastics, has never been seen to date of any size, okay? So in the world of microplastics that are out there, most of them range from 300 microns to 600 microns. That's fairly large. Your hair is about 80 microns in diameter. So the microplastics that really dominate all over, all environments are fairly large microplastics. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking, let's say we're talking 400 microns. Well, the final filtration of Quinton is done at 0.2 microns. Okay, so there's no microplastic that's that small, and it would be removed if it did exist.
Right. So can I give my dog hypertonic?
Absolutely. I have, like, one of the early joys of my own Quinton discovery was when doctors that I bonded with early on in showing Quinton, hey, what does it do with animals? And I go, I don't have a clue. And so some of the well-known doctors that all of you have heard of brought it to their dog, and they brought it to my attention. And dogs and cats seem to react in a more exaggerated way than even humans, and faster. And they all have cute stories about it. So I would mix it in the dog's water.
Yes.
Some people do actually
Usually-
put isotonic in the animal's mouth, and some maybe react negatively, but
Yeah.
others just go, wow, this is great.
It's amazing.
Remember that isotonic, even to a small child, it has the same reaction as mother's milk. I won't go into the details of this, but an animal reacts to this.
Mhm.
And many stories have been told that when they have given their animal isotonic, especially, whenever they even snap an ampule at some other place in the room, that animal comes scurrying over
Right.
and like, okay, where's mine? So
Right. All right. So let's talk about the shelf life, because Michelle is asking about ampules. We can never, of course, due to regulation, we can never advise taking expired product. However, these are stamped with a date of 5 years expiration.
right.
The glass ampules are.
Mhm.
We know people who have taken 30-year-old ampules. But
Way more.
yeah.
So there is actually a vault that is held at Laboratoires Quinton with, I think it goes back as far as the late 1920s, in which they have ampules from that era. And even though they're not accessible to people, but there are people who do use ampules. I don't know if they purchased it at some point from the 1930s. So it really is a very powerful product in its longevity as well.
Mhm. For a small dog, back to that question.
Yes.
They're asking a full ampule. Do you add an ampule to 2 cups of water?
There's a full
Contact
ampule
us.
of isotonic is appropriate for any life of any age. Okay? And more. So isotonic is you. Think of that. Is you. Could you add another 10 milliliters to your body fluids? Would that change anything? It will not. It will only help balance it even more precisely.
So let's talk about, given the current state of the world, a lot of people are using nebulizers, and a lot are doing hydrogen peroxide protocols where they need some saline. What do you say about using? We definitely don't suggest combining the Quinton with hydrogen
Never.
peroxide
Never.
at the same time.
Never.
But 2 hours apart, you can nebulize the hypertonic.
Absolutely. Use the
Very important right
hypertonic
now.
because because the hypertonic is already going to be automatically diluted by the nebulizer. Okay, so use the hypertonic, and it is a very powerful. I almost hesitate to say this. Respiratory aid. Okay. And there is, in fact, something called, in Barcelona, Spain, the Pros Clinic, that does some of the most exotic treatments of exotic health conditions only using the nebulization of Quinton. And you might end up in a day at the Pros Clinic, as I have, just experiencing it, to
Mhm.
nebulize 1 to 2 liters
That's a
in
lot.
the day. Okay,
That's a lot.
that's how powerful it is.
And before this webinar, I pulled up some research in the Journal of Pediatrics from years ago, where they were nebulizing a similar solution, not Quinton, but a similar solution in infants for bronchial issues.
Yes.
So that's something we suggest. I have my father doing it now. My sister just started as well. And it's very important right now to maintain the balance within the lungs.
Yes. Just don't mix it with anything. Use it.
Don't mix it.
Always use it straight.
Straight. Yeah. Kathy, for all panelists, how do you personally take hypertonic and isotonic in your day-to-day? So Mike, let's start with Mike.
For the last 12 years, I have a routine that I follow religiously, and that is every morning when I wake up, I take an ampule of isotonic. I love to play tennis, and I lived until just a few months ago in a Southeast Asian country that is always hot and always humid. I'm an avid tennis player, and you can lose literally pounds of water during one tennis match. So always before the tennis match, I take a hypertonic. After the tennis match, I take a hypertonic. And if I'm ever feeling like I might fall sick because I'm out of balance, I take a hypertonic. And invariably, whatever I think may be happening in a negative way, it doesn't happen. So that's my regime. I take isotonic every day, and I take hypertonic about 3 days a week before and after exercise.
And you have a large family with a lot of grandkids. So do you have everyone exposed to Quinton?
Absolutely. All of my children and my grandchildren drink pure water, aqua true water, and they take Quinton.
Yeah, so important.
So, and fortunately, I can knock on wood and say that, I don't know if I should say knock on wood, there's not much wood anymore, but none of them have been affected by the current health crisis that's going around the world.
So how about you?
Me, I stick to my plan. Right now, I take a hypertonic in the morning, and I put 1 ampule of hypertonic in each liter of drinking water. Okay, so I might even drink just 1 liter per day, and if I happen to go over, that liter also gets hypertonic. But the minute that something isn't going right in my body, I sense it. Okay, and at 76, it's more common than it was when I was 46. That I will immediately retreat, and maybe that's not a good word, to isotonic. If something doesn't feel right with me, I immediately do my morning with an isotonic. And I may take, during this course of suspecting some health condition, okay, and it could be sniffles even, I will take that maybe 2 and possibly even 3 times for a short period of time in a day. Okay. And then when that's done, I'm right back to hypertonic.
Right. So I do a similar thing. And now every time I run my water through 1 cycle of the AquaTrue, I've got my hypertonic right there, and I add it immediately to my RO water. So I do that, and usually before bed is when I take an isotonic after I brush my teeth, because I really think that those minerals are going to help support the remineralization process.
I mean, there are, what is written about just Quinton and gums is profound, okay?
And then in the morning, I will start off with either my mineralized water right away, because again, we're in that dehydrated state, and you can drink a lot of water immediately upon rising. get in those minerals. And then if I'm feeling off, that's when I reach for another isotonic.
Well, you know what I'm hearing us, because we're all different and every human is different. There's no wrong way to do it.
Right.
Absolutely
Actually,
no
right.
wrong way.
I mean, unless maybe you have some chronic condition that requires a protocol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I use some condition that is serious.
Right.
So depending upon, at least in my family, some of our family members prefer hypertonic. Some prefer isotonic. And I tell them all, whatever you do, just make sure every day you're getting one or the other, or if you need more, take the more.
And
So that's,
and if people can't afford it, if it's cost prohibitive for some people, take it twice a week, take it once a week.
Absolutely.
Introduce
Absolutely.
the periodic table to your body.
yep.
You have to have the periodic table available to your cells. Okay. Now there's quadrillions of atoms of the periodic table in Quinton. Okay. And while it may be better to increase the concentration for cells to make whatever changes you want occur quicker, but to have, I've even told people something as little as take one, if you can only afford one ampule in a month, take it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just to add a little bit more to that, because I think human experience is a good teacher. This country that I've lived in for decades has, if you talk about income, the average monthly income is roughly $500 US. So they don't have the affluence. And for many of them, they would make sure that they could afford to take one a day.
Yeah.
Many of them, as Robert accurately pointed out, they could not. So they were taking an ampule a week, some an ampule every 2 weeks, some once a month. The beautiful thing that we experienced is that there were still such positive benefits that it just filled your heart with gratitude and joy that we're helping these people attain, maybe not quite yet, but they're attaining that balance. And it's so important to make sure that you're doing this on a regular basis, whatever that basis may be, depending on your situation.
And what is sad is that on this very presentation that I am sharing with the audience, I actually have photographs of many of those incredible transformations of health, which I cannot show you during this era of extreme censorship. But it is truly remarkable.
It is. And these are people that I personally knew. Robert met on his trips over to visit us and do more education and training. And this isn't third-party speculation. This is holy moly.
Yes.
You went from here to here, and it was Quinton.
Mike was showing me pictures this morning that were amazing. I mean, the testimonials, and it's too much to get into right here on this webinar. We still have some more questions, and we're at about an hour. But I want to take a few more questions. There's still a lot coming in about how to use, and like he said, there's not a wrong way to use it. But Kimberly, taking the hypertonic on its own or with water, you can do either. If Gina is asking, if you do for a few months isotonic, then transfer to hypertonic, do you do both at the same time? And hypertonic, what is the dosing of hyper and the quantity of water? Again, it really depends. I put just one ampule or the 20 milliliters, 2 ampules in one AquaTrue container, one cycle. But a lot of that is also taste preference. So there's not a wrong way to do it. If you're doing a sauna, one of the questions here, I would take one before and one after, one hypertonic. depending on how long you're
I
doing
might
your
do an
sauna therapy.
isotonic before and a hypertonic after. That's what
After
I might
a sauna
do.
therapy?
Yeah, an infrared sauna, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And again, both would give some result that would be positive.
Okay.
Okay. But always remember that the isotonic reaches faster and deeper into the extracellular matrix or bioterrain to adjust and balance the minerals and trace elements and all the other physiological details of the extracellular fluid. I mean, the extracellular fluid and the extracellular matrix, not many doctors even talk this language, but it runs the show, okay? It runs the autonomic nervous system, terminates in the extracellular matrix. Everything, every control system, the way you blink your eyes, the way you adjust the temperature of your body to handle when you go outside and it's cold. All of this is taking place like this big board game in the extracellular matrix. And when it's not, when it doesn't have a balanced chemistry, it falters.
Exactly. Now, Victoria, you're asking about Canada. We do send to Canada, and I know it's expensive shipping costs. So she's asking, given the cost of getting it in Canada, is Celtic sea salt a reasonable backup for people who can't afford it?
No.
Not the same.
In terms of its therapeutic depth, no. And it's simply the fact that the Celtic sea salt, and I highly recommend you use Celtic sea salt. I do.
So do I.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the therapeutic depth isn't there because once you separate the elements from the water, the magic is gone. The water is the key. The water and mineral trace element relationship is what's doing the work. So it's simply, it would be better if in Canada, if you went to I don't know what coast you live on. If you went to the sea to a fisherman and say, would you go get me a couple liters of seawater from a very clean part of the ocean? That would be better than taking Celtic sea salt. And I'm not being negative about Celtic sea salt. It does contain, it contains the 70 elements, more or less. It's just the magic part is gone.
Yeah. So I've got a question from Allison who says, I've had my daughter-in-law take the isotonic for 4 months. She is 6 months pregnant and has had ADHD and high blood sugar. She feels the isotonic has helped a lot. Should she start taking the hypertonic now? Or stick with the isotonic?
I would like, okay, there's more to this than meets the eye. And I mean, I hope you can help me make this work, that she should submit this somehow to your email and we answer it with a more complete, there's more to know for this situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, sorry to interrupt, but what you'll find with us is that this is our passion and we love to help people. Between all three of us, this is our passion. But Robert and I really spend the time going through emails, helping people on a daily basis. And in these cases, you can just email me, Angela@waterandwellness.com, and we'll get into a dialogue about, certain things. I also do consults on the side for people that are, more extensive, difficult cases. But, this is something that you can just reach out to us privately. We've got different protocols and things that
we have a lot about having babies.
Yes, a lot. Let's see here. There's more questions coming in. Has anyone tried imprinting their Quinton with a complex informatic type?
Surely. I mean, since I brought it to the United States 15 years ago, many people were using their energetic signature devices and healing devices, QXCIs and OnDemeds, et cetera, and programming the Quinton. I mean, there's nothing more programmable than something that contains the entire balance of the periodic table. It's
But
the
please
ultimate.
use the glass ampules for that
Yes.
purpose.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. There are more questions.
One more thing about this. I have a paper called "The Signal Needs a Path," and that paper addresses really this question. And it's really for practitioners that anytime you are using an energetic healing modality, I highly recommend that you prepare your patient by having him take, even for a couple of days before, depending upon the seriousness of their condition, prior to your treatment, so his extracellular matrix is prepared to read and use the signal. Okay? The balance of the extracellular matrix is everything in the use of the signal. So anyway, if somebody wants to get into that, we're happy to send you the paper.
We're electrical beings.
Yes.
And this optimizes the delivery of
Yes.
information throughout the entire body. And people oftentimes feel that difference. If they've tried a different product and then try Quinton, they feel that difference. And, you know, it may be the people that are more imbalanced notice more of the difference, but, you know, this is just something we all make sure is
How many
foundational.
products do we know have spread globally for 125 years with virtually no advertising, no nothing, right? It truly is a class of its own.
We have a lot of people asking about pregnancy and lactation. Please reach out to me directly because we have certain suggestions. Let's see here. A lot of people are saying they love their Aqua True. Thank you. Thank you. We love it too. Victoria. Yep. Yes, we do. Again, we do ship to Canada. Kimberly, just reach out to me, Angela@waterandwellness.com. And I'll also go through these afterwards. If I miss somebody's question, we will respond. Let's see here. There's more. Just bear with me a moment. Okay, there was someone asking about tinnitus and salt aggravating it. Would seawater make it worse? And to be quite honest, this is something you just never know. You have to try, and there's no harm in trying it. There really isn't.
And I've had people cure tinnitus with just small drops of Quinton.
Although we can't say anything cures.
Did I say that?
We can't.
Yes, you did.
We do
I'm
not
sorry.
treat. We do not cure.
We didn't do that. We didn't do that.
Okay,
We
and then
helped improve a situation.
we support homeostasis and the body heals itself.
Yep.
That's what we do. So can one mix Quinton with hydrogen? Please don't do that.
Do not.
Please don't do that. Because when you're using hydrogen, you want to dissolve that tablet. It's a very complex reaction.
Chemistry, yes.
And you just want to use room temperature water that is as close to neutral as possible. So please don't mix it with Quinton. Although I'm sure people have, but we don't suggest it. Can one overdose on Quinton?
On hypertonic, you could. Let's say you had hypertension, sodium-related hypertension, and you took 5 ampules of it at a time or something. It would just be unnecessary and foolish to do.
Why waste your money?
Why waste your money?
And then people ask, I have a shellfish allergy, I have a sulfur allergy, I have hypothyroidism. Can I use it? And we might have just lost our video, but when someone says they have shellfish allergy or sulfur allergy, what do you say?
No,
I've never run into any
No,
problems.
no
with it.
problem. No
no,
problem.
no, no.
There's
I
no
never have.
antigenic properties to it. That's what you're reacting to. So it's not likely an
Can I
issue
go
for
to another
people.
slide too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gina's asking, does it raise blood pressure if someone has issue with it?
Not,
Do you
not,
mean
you
if
mean,
someone's reacting to Quinton?
No.
Gina?
no, certainly isotonic would lower the blood pressure if it went in any direction, but
Well, supporting
hypertonic,
homeostasis, so bringing it back into balance. If it's low, oftentimes we
Yes.
see people come to a normal blood pressure. If someone has dysautonomia, and they may need higher amounts of hypertonic to reach that level of homeostasis and regulate blood pressure. So just know there are certain instances where you need higher amounts of hypertonic, and adopting a ketogenic diet may be one, dysautonomic scenarios are another.
So I'm going to show a quick slide.
It's there.
Angela,
Yes.
I'm going to show a quick slide.
Okay.
So I just want to show you, because this is for the beginners, so to speak. And I did talk about the deficiency of our modern diet. And this is the periodic table. I just want to point out to you, just so you have a graphic and illustrative way of understanding it. This is the periodic table that the modern diet typically supplies. It's missing so many of the essential nutrients in the form of minerals and trace elements.
So Robert, what you're saying, for those who aren't familiar with the table, all those white blank spaces are stuff that should be there, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And please, if you're not familiar with the periodic table, please go to the Wikipedia and learn something about it, because it really is everything you're made out of. And that is a pretty important thing. So here's what happens when you add Quinton to your regime, to your health regime. You fulfill your evolutionary destiny.
Mm-hmm.
You fulfill what you were literally designed in. And so, I mean, it's like the perfect storm.
Patrick, you're asking, how do you measure when homeostasis is occurring? So depending
That's a great
on
question.
who you're talking to, there's a lot of measurements that you could be looking at on a daily basis. Heart rate variability. You can look at, just your vitals on a daily basis. What's going on with your blood pressure? What's going on with, a good chiropractor would be able to look at the state of the parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system. I love, my background is teaching doctors in functional medicine. I look at the subtle imbalances in testing and looking that way. So depends on who you're talking to. There's muscle testing techniques. There's all kinds of different ways to do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, electronic terrain analyzers, etc. I'm showing you here what a photomicrograph of a drop, or whatever it is, the quantity of raw Quinton is. This is what would be taken from a plankton bloom. This is how rich in life it is, okay? And then all of this gets removed in the processing, et cetera, et cetera. But it's so delicate, it has to be maintained at 4 degrees centigrade. But this gives you an idea of all of these things are contributors to something that's beyond science in the understanding of its relationship to the health of our species. I might as well tell you that's the facility in Spain where it's made. Let's see, somebody was asking about the quality assurance and their contaminants. This is like a report for endotoxins, heavy metals, radioactivity, et cetera, et cetera. This shows you something of the process. These are taken from right from the ocean after quality assurance, hooked up to the system, and it goes through. You can see it's even, they only use glass piping to process it. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. This is how the ampules are sealed. They're just sealed with a small flame. This is
Robert, one thing that stuck with me when I first met you was you told me that there was some type of challenge out there that I don't know if it was you or someone said, okay, we'll pay you to go to a competitor's facility and then Quinton, Spain, and compare the whole process.
Yeah.
Nobody would take you up on that because all of these competitors know they're not they're not harvesting correctly. They're applying heat, but they may be saying they're not. There's just no transparency. And
Well,
that's the difference.
I mean, to be honest with you, I would say that there are no formidable competitors. I mean, not even in terms of quality and so on. That no one has been successful competing with Quinton. Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of a market that Quinton owns. There are many, such as this, such as this, such as this. There are many resources on Quinton.
Just not in
with
English.
Information. Well, there are some in English,
No,
but we cannot share these with you. Okay? We've already had, just so you know, we've already had Quinton at one point about 6 years ago. The FDA suspended the importation because they found a book that said Quinton can do something, and they didn't like that. So, and it was something very trivial, but they just dislike a product that is so versatile and so magnificent in its capabilities. And I will show you, so Angela doesn't have to do it. Okay, look, if you know anybody that's going to even plan to conceive, plan to have a baby, whatever, you have to get into the use of Quinton, because it will be, and Renee Quinton would agree with us, the greatest single capability of Quinton, because it was the basis of evolution, and it is the basis of amniotic fluid, and it is the basis of a perfect baby.
Yeah. And Robert, weren't there studies where they did track Quinton babies?
Oh my God, yes. It's like there are volumes on Quinton. They called them Quinton babies back then.
Let me get back to a couple questions here. Gina, if you're still on here, just choose isotonic instead of hypertonic. If there's someone who is dealing with hypertension, just make sure it's isotonic. Let's see here. Yes, Quinton can be mixed with warm water or tea. That's not a problem. Any other questions that we might have missed? Please do send them over. I think we got most of them. After using isotonic for 2 months, what is the importance of switching to hypertonic? You don't need to. If you're feeling really good on isotonic, continue with isotonic. But
I mean, it depends. I mean, my answer would be, look, if you're going to then start doing 10Ks every week and do 100-mile bike rides, you won't have enough electrolyte information from just an isotonic compared to an hypertonic, which contains 3 times more. So
case by case basis, but someone who's active and sweating, you're going to want that additional support.
Yes.
So is it possible that it gives you an allergic reaction?
I've never in the thousands, in the thousands of people that we've
I can't think of an allergic reaction.
And people don't realize. Oh, go ahead.
If there is an allergic reaction, it's not to say there can't be a Herxheimer or detox reaction.
Exactly.
Okay, don't confuse those two.
Exactly.
Okay, because it is going to help the body elicit that contaminant or that allergen from your body, and it's going to be brought in to the space where the body may notice it.
Right. And I find that a lot of people don't understand that when your immune system is reacting, it's usually reacting to a protein antigen,
Yes.
and that's not in this. So
We
it's
used
filtered.
we used to have an occasional person that what we called it a healing crisis.
Right. Exactly.
They thought, oh my goodness, this stuff is making it worse. It's not making it better.
Right.
But in fact, we said just stick with it. And then at the end of the trail, it was like it's a miracle.
Right. The
And-
pictures you showed
And
me
the
where
photos,
it got
yes,
worse
unbelievable.
before it got better.
Yes.
So it was
Yeah.
that expression of whatever the body is trying to get out as it's regaining the balance. You got to get rid of the toxins,
Yes.
in
Right.
whatever form they are. And sometimes they come out through the skin and sometimes other methods. But that healing crisis is sometimes mistaken for an allergic reaction.
Precisely.
And it is not. I've literally out of hundreds of thousands of boxes of Quinton, I've never seen an allergic reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my personal experience.
Your experience. Mm-hmm. So Gina's asking, can it create loose bowels? And again, is the loose bowels, is that just a temporary healing detox effect? Or you may want to see how many amps they're using. If it's a lot of hypertonic, maybe they're getting a lot of magnesium along with their other magnesium supplements, and that's creating the loose bowels. So you just have to check in with that person. Everybody's
And
different.
the loose bowels thing is the difference between constipation and diarrhea is just a few percent in body water concentration in the intestines. So this obviously, if you were to take multiple ampules of Quinton, either one, it could shift that. So if you experiencing loose bowels, then you should cut back on the number of ampules. But
Right.
I've never seen
Right.
one ampule ever change the status of bowel fluidity.
Wyatt, yes, you can drink it with lemon water. That's fine. Andrea, if I'm going to add hypotonic to water, what kind of water does it need to be? In your requirements, is a plastic BPA-free bottle okay? Make sure you're drinking RO, reverse osmosis water, or distilled, something that's very well purified, and you should be fine. Let's see here. Do you have to wait 30 minutes in the morning after Quinton before coffee? No.
I think we should go back to who was it with the lemon water?
Wyatt.
I think we should go back to Wyatt, and it's like because I'm the scientist type, I want to know, like, well, what do you mean you're a whole lemon and one ampule? So if you were really using Quinton for a more serious situation, I wouldn't want you to mix high concentrations of lemon juice with the Quinton. You are going to change its chemistry. I can't even predict how, but just you're going to acidify. The solubilities of the elements will change. The way they interact will change. So if it's a serious thing, if you're just going
Robert,
on,
are you referring to isotonic or hypertonic?
well, I'm thinking he's doing this with hypertonic. Okay. And you'll make even a greater change to isotonic. I think it's best not to do something that is a radical pH change from Quinton, okay? Which is fairly neutral to 7 to 8 pH.
Right.
So I think to drive it down into the citric acid zone of lemon juice, probably not the best thing. But if you just squeeze, if you had a glass of water, put a Quinton in it and squeeze a little segment of lemon in, I don't think there's any problem.
Lori, absolutely use this when you're going to be flying. And
Yes.
in fact, we all carry the sachets with us when we're flying. But she said how to use when flying to avoid dehydration. How do you use it when you're flying?
Well, I give one to the co-pilot and pilot first because they
Need to stay alert.
they need to stay alert and alive.
Yeah. Oh, Lori is also asking our gosh darn question. So Lori, when you open it the way we did, this is what I tell people to do. When you break it off, just use a little tissue or paper towel to just wipe off the end. Then I put my finger on, flip it over, break the other side, wipe it off. And then some people might just let one finger off to let a drop out. So you know you're not going to get anything in. And really, I've never run into a problem.
Right.
But the sachets are always an option too.
Yeah, I mean, care is something you should always have in the back of your mind, but it is extremely rare that they don't break
Yeah, cleanly.
perfectly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Should I take my morning vitamins away from hypertonic? If so, how long should I?
Yes. Like by at least an hour
Yeah.
An hour. And the other thing to mention
with the isotonic coming first.
yeah, and don't take 2 isotonic ampules at the same time. It's actually better to divide the doses, so that
Yes.
it's just important to remember that. Yes, Quinton can be added to hot herbal tea, but again, it's best if it's isotonic just by itself. Also, do you need to not eat anything until 30 minutes after finishing the water with like hypertonic? So hypertonic you can take any time. You can be eating dinner and drinking your water with hypertonic in it. No problem. It's helping to remineralize and hydrate. And is it okay to keep the liters on my countertop and not refrigerate? I would keep them refrigerated. Once it's open,
Keep the
you have
liters
to.
on.
The
The
countertop.
liters on the countertop. If it's
instead
not
of in the
open,
refrigerator.
Oh yeah, for
But-
sure. And I presume it's liters of hypertonic.
yes.
Okay.
But that was a question. I heard 1 liter bottles of isotonic have to be finished in a few days to maintain its quality.
Not really.
Well, it's not something that you want to, again, depending on the person
And the application. I mean, if you're just using this for sheer minerals and trace elements, you do not have to finish this in a few days. No. Just if you were to keep it refrigerated, it's more than sufficient.
What is the shelf life of the sachets? That is 3 years.
Yes.
3 years versus 5 years with the glass. But they're actually doing more testing on the stability, and it might be 4 years. So, if I'm doing 1 ampule of isotonic per bottle of water, how many ampules of isotonic can I use in a day?
Okay, so you don't want to use and waste your money by adding an isotonic to a bottle of water.
No.
You never dilute isotonic because it's already diluted 3 times.
Mhm.
And you're paying the same amount for it, okay? Because of all the activity involved in that. So only dilute, only use as an additive for minerals and trace elements to water, only use hypertonic.
Great. Okay. Let's see. I think we've got them covered. But when you fly, that question again, how do you use when flying? I just bring a sachet, and when I'm in the airport waiting to board, I either put it in my bottle of water or just straight in my mouth.
Okay, and let me add one little thing to that. Let's say you have a long flight. Let's say it's like a hassle getting to the airport, et cetera, et cetera. Don't forget that an isotonic is a powerful tool in shifting someone from sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, I'm nervous, to parasympathetic.
Right.
So it's a great way to take a flight by taking an isotonic before the flight, and you'll probably get a nice relaxing experience.
And let me just add one thing, because of where I've been living all these years. To come back here is typically a 14-hour flight. And that 14 hours, the humidity is so low. You get so
Very good.
dehydrated. People want to drink a wine or a beer or something during the flight to help them relax or help them sleep. the best thing that I've found is take a sachet of Quinton halfway through the flight, and it calms you. It helps you relax. And sometimes I don't sleep on flights, but at least I feel decent when I land after a 14-hour flight. So I think that what Robert pointed out is absolutely true, especially in the condition that the world is in these years. The lines through security, the hassle of taking all your clothes off almost before you can go through, and the stress that builds up really does affect a lot of people. And we look at these incidents of rage on the airplanes. It's not surprising to me because people are stressed, and stress
Who
is a
isn't
killer.
stressed
Yeah.
traveling in this environment today?
So I recommend on a longer flight,
Yeah.
use Quinton through the flight.
Yeah, absolutely. So isotonic, I'm going to start doing that because usually I take my hypertonic sachets with me, but I'm going to start with the isotonic.
Go for it.
sachets.
Good.
Yeah. So Shelby,
Glad
we
you
did
came to the webinar.
I know, I'm learning something new. I always do with these guys. Shelby, we did answer those questions. We are going to send out a recording of this so you can watch that again. Natalia, can it help with menopausal sweats and hot flashes after total hysterectomy and chemotherapy by any chance? Okay, that's another one you're going to want to reach out to us directly.
Yes.
Too complicated for this call, unfortunately, but Angela at waterandwellness.com. If you have any questions for Robert or Mike, just send them to me and we will discuss, and I'll have someone get back in touch with you. Kathy's asking, what's the difference between the quintessential sachets and the ones in the blue box? You know, that's a good question. So just a moment here. This is the quintessential 0.9. This is the isotonic. This is the white glass ampule right here, or excuse me, the clear. And then the hypertonic is going to be the 3.3 because that's a higher concentration. So 0.9 versus 3.3. Okay. All righty. And so again, I think we have most of these questions answered for now. If there's anything we missed, again, just email us for this call. And because you guys made it to the end for 1 hour and 40 minutes with us,
Wow.
we have the special offer for a box of Quinton isotonic and hypertonic together. And if you go to our website, there is a bundle there and you can use the code BALANCE21 and you'll get that $11 off the normal price. Let's see here. And thanks for staying with us to the end.
Thank you.
We love educating and we love sharing our passion. So.
And it's a shame that we've only gone 1 hour and 45. I'd love to go 10 or 12, but
Yeah. And we wish we could tell you everything.
yes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest frustration for me.
And I think what we want to focus on is helping everyone get through this winter season healthy and supporting that balance and making sure during the holidays, first thing in the morning, I would suggest, and I know Mike, we were talking about this, get up first thing in the morning, drink some water and take your Quinton and maintain that balance through the holidays. Make sure you and your family are staying healthy.
Fantastic.
Anything else, guys?
Nothing.
No, that was
I'm taking a
enjoyable.
hypertonic.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab one as well.
I know there's going to be some special offers around the holidays, like always. So keep an eye out for those. I know people that receive texts, they get $10 off. So if that helps you get through the holidays and save some money, there you go. And if you know any practitioners that want to become wholesalers, also just reach out. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
And
for
happy
joining us.
holidays. Happy holidays.
Great experience.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.